Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is August 23, 2024. Want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Please subscribe. Also want to thank Sam Amidon, the father of our guest today, and the Swans Island Sweet Chariot Festival for getting me together with Sam many years ago and then realizing that his dad's worth interviewing too. I mean, his whole family. Peter Amidon, what a pleasure and an honor. Where in the heck are you calling in from?
Brattleboro, Vermont.
First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
The best thing for this human being well, I'll say singing is the best thing for this human being, but I think more generally, interacting with other human beings.
Yeah. Already the two best answers I ever get. I never get singing. I mean, let's get real here. You know the cliche, if you can't say it, sing it. If you
That,
can't
that's
if you can't sing it, dance it.
that's true. That's true. Yeah. Well, I don't know about you, but my life has been basically singing. The first part of my career, and a lot of this is, I have to say, along with Mary Alice, my wife and partner, Mary Alice Amidon, was dancing with children,
Yeah.
and then later on dancing, teaching, dancing, singing, and storytelling, but mostly dancing. Teaching elementary school teachers big workshops around the country on how to do dancing with children, just anything we can do to foster dancing with children, not just to increase the volume of dancing, but to increase the quality that the children have when they're dancing with their teachers. But a lot of it is just more dancing with kids. And
Yeah.
then in my retirement, more or less, and we've always been singing, and I've been a church choir director for 25 years and doing a lot of arranging. But the singing is my career was sort of, a really simple and inaccurate way to say it would be, my career was dancing and my retirement is singing. That's
Oh, that's
way
good.
oversimplified, but it is. But
Oh,
there's some truth to that. There's some truth to it.
and wait, dancing was your career and singing is your retirement. Is that
That's
right?
kind of
Yeah.
that's kind of how it all laid out. That is
Yeah.
kind of how it laid out. Yeah, I mean,
You summarize everything we're going to get into, but we're going to go on with a few philosophical questions first and then get into music and dance. But again, you can go wherever you want. First of all, just to be clear, I welcome anecdotes, stories, tangents, and you don't have to answer the question.
I love
It's
it.
just,
That's good.
yeah,
Good.
it's really open. So what's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
Well, again, I think it's talking with people.
Yeah.
Just talking. I'm going to say that one of the great pleasures. So I'm 75, and I mean you're probably, I don't know, 60 or so, and
I am 71.
there you go.
Yeah.
So one of the great pleasures I have now in my life is just having friends who are good conversationalists join me up in my porch, and we just sit there, just free range talking.
Yeah.
So, what was that question again? I kind of got
What
lost.
is your favorite form of
Oh yeah,
information?
that's right. That's right. Yeah, no, it definitely is. It definitely is talking. I mean, I use the computer a lot. There's this
Yeah.
phenomenon called, one of the best uses of the computer I have right now is this thing called the daily antidote of song. Have you heard of the daily antidote of song?
Tell me about it.
The daily antidote of song was started by Joe Rasi, Rasijo. It's a woman, Joe Rasi, and because when the pandemic hit, people were isolated and they were not singing together. So she started this Zoom thing where every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 365 days a year, every day at noon, some great singing leader comes on Zoom and sings with whoever wants to join them. And of course, with Zoom, all you can really hear is a singing leader, but still, they just teach songs people can sing along with. Peggy Seeger, and I don't know if you know any of these people, Peggy Seeger and Yzé Barnwell, and some of the really great singing leaders of the world were part of it, as well as just plain old singing leaders like me. So that's just to say that,
Yeah.
and so that went through the pandemic, and when the pandemic was over, Joe and her friends realized that there were a lot of people that were coming every day to this, where it was kind of transcending the pandemic. People who are isolated, this was the chance they got to. And when the first thing you do, if I'm hosting it, I say, "Hello, Jerry from Venice. Hello, Sarah from British Columbia. Hello,
Yeah.
Terry from UK." Everybody is said hello to, all 50 or 60 of them, and everybody is said
Yeah.
goodbye to. And there's a lot of people who come on every day. So
Yeah.
it's continued. Now it's up to about 1,500, I think, days in a row it's been. So that's
Wow.
just to say that is the computer. And the other thing I love the computer for is just how it allows me to share my, I'm an arranger, a
Yeah.
composer and arranger, mostly an arranger, and I sell my stuff online. But to me, it's partly, I love making the money, but really it's just a way to share these. It's a way to increase the singing of the world, singing together with other people. My arrangements, I um, modestly say, are I strive for them to be beautiful, interesting, spiritual, broadly spiritual, and really and accessible.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're known for. So the computer allows me to. People are buying. The people are seeing them all over the world now, basically. And so that's a really nice. So just to say that the computer is certainly
Yeah.
very important, but the most meaningful interactions are in person. Certainly the pandemic showed us that. That showed us how there were some silver linings, but man,
Yeah, no, it's amazing what you just said because most people say, "What's your favorite form of information?" They go direct experience, live. But then what happened was when the pandemic hit, I turned all my live events, which were much like that every day, all the time, into Zoom events. And I found that Zoom events are people are more attentive than they are when they're in a room. But people don't want to hear that. They want me to return to my live events. I'm like,
Yes.
dude, no, I'm not gonna. I do some, but it's like an amazing thing. Like you said, my best friends now in Texas and people in Dublin. But back to Joe's Zoom a daily anecdote of song.
Joe
What
Ross,
yeah, RAZI?
RASI.
Oh, and is that noon Pacific time or
Well, good
East
question. It's ET, Eastern time. Yeah,
Eastern time?
and
Yeah,
she's based in she's in New Hampshire now, actually, but the organization is based in DC that
yeah.
sponsors it.
No, I would love to check into that. So, is this neat? No. Why do you think people collect or gather information? So you told me what your favorite form of information is, how it comes into you, direct experience, and that these computer things. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Why do we gather information? Well, let me make it personal. What information do I want to gather? I want to gather information that I want to gather information that makes life more meaningful.
Yeah,
So, and what information is that? I think that's, and also not, yeah, more meaningful. So some of the information is practical. So why do people gather information? Well, they gather information so they can stay healthy,
yeah,
stay healthy physically, stay healthy psychically. They gather information so they can have a more successful relationship. I'm really a more successful relationship with other people. So
yeah.
what kind of information is that? Well, that's information about how to communicate. I mean, that's really
Yep.
important. There's also, I think it's really important to gather information. I don't know exactly if that's the right word for it, but to me, I think just reading
Yeah.
books. Not, I really like fiction,
Yeah.
and that is just kind of a great and amazing pleasure. And it's more than that, but I just say, but that's the short, my most immediate feeling about it is just reading reading a good fiction book it enriches you, and certainly in certain ways. But and I think that kind of pleasure is a really important part of being human. So maybe that's a sort of gathering information.
No, that was good. And just a quick tangent, did you become a reader, one, because your parents told you, two, they did it as an example, or three, on your own?
I did it on my own. I remember when I was a kid, my parents got Reader's Digest, and I wasn't really a reader then much, and I discovered, and so they was just sitting there, and I noticed that they had jokes, and I've always been a fan of jokes and humor.
Yeah.
It kind of started then. They weren't very good jokes, but they were jokes, and I started used to read all the jokes, and then after I was reading the whole magazine, and that was and then there was this collection of I found in the my mother brought me to the library, and I discovered the Mother West Wind stories, which is a little
Yeah.
kind of series that came out about 60, 70 years ago. And that was my first books that I was reading. They had big print. You got through a book pretty quickly. And then in college, I had a professor who turned me on to Tom Wolfe, the 20th century Tom Wolfe, and some of the Kurt Vonnegut and people like that. And then after college, I discovered Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and Jane and Austen and Middlemarch, George Eliot, and
Yeah.
and that was really what I read in my 20s, was just all those kind of classics, and Middlemarch over and over again, and uh, what's it called, Anna Karenina, over and over again, the Austen books all over and over again. And now I read more of a variety, partly because I've read them so much I can't read them anymore. But
Yeah.
um,
That's good. Just
yeah.
an aside, really quick. Did you see the Tom Wolfe documentary?
No,
Check it out. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah,
I
he's
will. I love that guy.
yeah, I'm into him heavily too, because he's one of these huge authors that got McLuhan, actually got him, sort of understood him, and we're going to go into that. But here's the next question in regard to collecting and gathering information: is this need or want to collect or gather information more innate or more invented?
I think it's innate. I mean, I
Yeah,
just think it's just innate. I think it's part of who we are. It's part of makes us. I mean, collecting all those informations that I mentioned, and I'm sure they're the ones I didn't. Um, it's just, it's like, uh, when I'm not, maybe when you know someone when you get to know people who have Alzheimer's, it makes you realize how how memory is us. Memory
yeah,
is, it's not like we've lost them, but you just realize memory is what we are. We remember somebody comes to visit, and it's your memory that makes it a meaningful interaction with them. So
totally.
I think that's kind of the beginning of,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's innate. I mean, but how to survive, it starts with survival. But another thing about survival is that, with kind of going back to singing here, jumping around, but um, I've always wondered one of my questions in my life has been, why do we sing? What's this all about? Making music together.
yeah,
What's the evolutionary purpose of singing?
yeah.
And I feel like I understand what it probably is that when you sing with a group, it, I mean, there's physical things that happen. It kind of, but I won't go into that now. When you sing with a group, it bonds the group together
Oh
in a
yeah.
way that nothing else does, and that is an evolutionary reason why we sing. It's why we develop this whole
It's why,
thing.
dude, it's why you got such a close-knit family. I mean, this woman from Venice, California, my hometown, she's a rock star, Pink. She sang at the DNC the other night, and she
Ah,
brought out her daughter, and her daughter's like one of your sons. She knows how to sing, and I mean, you just watch it for 4 seconds or 5 seconds. It's unbelievable. Well, the chills you get when you see that DNA or that nurture or nature that went
yeah,
through that parent into the kid. I mean, you believe me, I could do two 8-part net series podcasts with you just on Sam alone. I
yeah.
don't even know Stefan, but here's the next question, Peter. That was really beautiful what you said. And now one more little anecdote is I heard someone on the radio once, she's a famous writer, and she says, "My mom grew up in the Caribbean and she never, read books, but she knows what to do when a tsunami hits
Mm.
because the song she sang tells her."
Yeah,
So
wow.
not only does it bond you with
Yeah,
feeling, it's actually telling you practical survival tips like, "Oh,
really.
yeah, like, because we live in Venice, and they have signs like, "When the tsunami hits, run up to Mar Vista, it's a hill," you
Yeah,
know? Yeah,
wow. Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah.
you will run fast enough to beat the tsunami. And watch all the dogs and the cats because 'cause they're gonna know before you do. If they're all
Yeah,
running that way, follow them.
yeah, and if you sing it, you'll remember it. If you sing it, you remember it better.
That's it.
That's a great way to provide information to people for
That's
sure.
it. Do thoughts create emotions?
Do thoughts create emotions? I don't think that's, uh, makes sense to me exactly. Thoughts and emotions. I feel like they're, kind of 2 different things. So let me think about that just for a second. The
Yeah,
thoughts
that's the other thing, there's no rush. Silence
this
is
right.
okay.
The thoughts create emotions. You know, they're kinda like, thoughts and emotions, it's kinda like, to me, thoughts and emotions are kind of like light is a wave, and light is, our little, what do you call those, photon, they have light is both a wave, and it's also little particles.
It's yeah,
That's sort of like, and it doesn't make sense, but that is the truth.
yeah,
And I feel like that's what thoughts and emotions are. They're 2 sides of the same thing in a
yeah.
way. They're, and it's certainly thoughts is kind of, you think of thoughts as more, specific, more fact oriented, maybe more story oriented, but emotions, yeah, what is an emotion? That's not,
Well, it's good, Peter, 'cause, actually Zappa got this word from someone else. It's called a wavicle. So that's because,
That's
I
great.
mean,
That's what it is. The wavicle,
it's a
exactly.
wavicle. But it's funny because people, I always say, well, 80% of people say this when I say, "Do thoughts create emotions?" My favorite was, V. Bailey said, "Emotions create emotions." But they go, "Well, it's both, it's back and forth,
Yeah.
feeling and thinking." But here's the next question. I don't know what I think until I fill in the blank.
I was gonna say wake up.
Wake up. That's good.
I don't know what I think until I wake up. I can there's a million of it. I think I could have a whole bunch of it. I don't know. I think until I calm down. It could be another one.
That's
I don't
good.
know what I think. I like wake up a lot, actually.
Well,
Uh,
dude, say keep it there, guy. Everything comes full circle. You'll see. Here's what I don't know what I think until I say it, is what McLuhan said.
oh,
Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it.
aha.
And that's an amazing because wake up is the word wake is huge in my world because of Finnegan's Wake by
Mhm.
James Joyce. He actually took an American Irish folk song, removed the apostrophe. Finnegan's Wake is the name of a song with the apostrophe. And
Aha.
he removed the apostrophe for the name of his book. And he's basically saying, all you people, all you Finnegans, wake up. And so that's funny because, you know, we'll get into it, but what music does is put you guys into a trance
Yeah.
somewhat. And you're almost returning to the sleep state. But then in that sleep state, you probably have epiphanies a lot, but then you're in that sort of flow, they call it. So
Right.
I've never had when until I wake up, but I also love calm down
Yeah.
because, this guy the other day, he goes, I don't know what I think until I ponder it. Then I wait a little and then I ponder it some more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get a million answers. It's that
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
another one would be just coming out of I've done some meditating, and say you could say, "I don't know what I think until I stop thinking," and that's just
until I stop
when you
thinking.
stop, because you just have this noise in your head all the time going on,
Yeah,
and
until I
if you can
stop
stop,
thinking.
if you can kind of stop the noise,
Good luck. That's
uh,
really good.
yeah, really, right.
High aspiration. Well, you're anticipating 2 questions away, but let's do this one.
Okay.
Can humans think without language?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, yeah, you can think without language, absolutely. I mean, that's what, art does. I mean, so many art things are thinking without language,
Yeah.
not just I mean, even music, even music that has words in it, there's all that stuff in it that's not can humans communicate? Was that the word you used?
No, I actually said it's funny because there's a lot of can humans think
Oh, can
without
humans think with it? Yeah, 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 right, yes. Yes, I mean, yeah, and that's so maybe what you say when humans are thinking without language, maybe that's sort of a going back to earlier, maybe that's a helpful, little hint of what makes emotion not language.
Yeah,
It's when humans think and it's not language, maybe that might be almost a definition of what emotion is non-language thinking. I don't know.
that's good. Peter, this is fun. You get it. So this is Chomsky. Language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Sounds like what you do your whole life. what what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
Well, when language breaks down, there's an element of I'm thinking about people who have a different language style that I do, who I really I on one hand I really enjoy people who are good listeners, and I consider myself a good listener. It's been
Yeah,
kind of a lifelong study is how to be a good listener and a good conversationalist. And there are, and we all know people who uh, are often someone who's kind of self-absorbed and doesn't have listening skills and just kind of talk, 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 talk. And so maybe that's one, and also another side of that is someone who's kind of comes from anger
yeah,
in a lot of their and to me that's when language can maybe that's a way of saying that's when and I have some very good friends who I can think of some very specific friends who kind of have a foundation of anger that makes it hard to spend time with them even though I love them and I have I interact with them a lot, but I might not choose to get involved in a conversation with them. So when language breaks down in that kind of situation with somebody, you love them. You just love them, and
yeah.
you don't necessarily. You don't have to stay there. You don't have to stay there all that time. And when there's a person who calls me once in a while, who I won't say who it is, but who just uh, is difficult to talk with because they're so self-absorbed and they just talk, 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 and might say, "Hey, how you doing?" I says, "Well, I had a gig last night." "Oh, I saw this other guy who had a gig," and they're just like, and so I'll think to myself, "I'm going to give this person who I love 20 minutes."
Right. Well, that's
You know?
generous. I was gonna say, dude, I've got an
Yeah.
appointment. I've got to
No,
run.
well, if on the phone, if it's on the phone or if it's in person, I'll just say, I'm going to give this person, this lovely person who doesn't know how to talk very well, some time. And I'm going to love them and make them feel good. And then I'm going to not, but then I'm going to take care of myself and separate myself from yeah, that
Peter, again, you're anticipating all the directions our conversations go, and this is really good. So, your observations of humans in general, are we more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
feeling.
Yeah.
No matter, I mean, yeah. So there are plenty of people who think they're more thinking beings, but they're wrong.
You know
They're
what most people go, "I think we're more feeling beings." But it's funny because, some people go, I'm not into binaries," because we
Yeah,
invented the word feeling and thinking, and they're so interconnected, you can't separate them. But you did earlier on in our conversation, and you did it, like, wisely. It sounded correct that there is this separation. Like Bridget Bardot says, "When I make love, I don't think." I'm like, "Good luck. How do you turn your brain off?" But
yeah,
or people who meditate, think about not thinking.
yeah, right.
And then one more is, the bumper sticker on a car on my street, it says, "Don't believe everything you think." And I go, "Well, it could be don't believe everything you feel."
Yeah, that's actually a really, uh, important one to remember.
Yeah,
Don't believe everything you feel. That's really
yeah.
important.
But,
Um, I think
I
you can
mean, in
trust.
general, you
Yeah,
think we're more feeling beings, and
absolutely.
that's what 80% of people I ask say, we're more feeling beings.
And one of the reasons, one of that comes from, I did sometimes when I'm very involved in our church. We have a United Church of Christ church that I'm part of. I've been the choir director for 25 years, and it's a great place, great people. And so when the pastor's not there, sometimes we kind of take over the service. And I did a service one time, and a recent one I did last May was on active listening. And I
Yeah,
did some active listening. As I mentioned, that's something that's very important to me. And I did a little bit of research on it. And one thing I found out was that I read about the research was that, it's something I'm sure Jerry, that, when you're talking with somebody, um, I don't know, 70, 80%, something like that, largest percent of the communication is happening non-verbally. The second thing I learned that I sort of heard that before, but I didn't know, is that when you're talking with somebody, having a conversation with somebody, you and that person, there's two people, you and that person's brainwaves start to get aligned, and your pupils dilate at the same time, and you just get, and the way that the way you're perceiving me when I'm talking is my talking is activating the talking parts of your brain. And so you're kind of empathizing with me by, like, almost talking with me, and that empathy is what makes the conversation what makes the conversation between two people the essence of who we are. It's the most important.
yeah, it's
So that's why I
connecting.
said that's why I'm kind of going for feeling here, feeling,
Yeah.
because it's just
Well, it's
all.
connecting, yeah, connecting on that empathetic level is so important. In fact, I'll tell you right off, one of the greatest video game directors gave a lecture, and he says, "Fuck storytelling, it's all empathy." And I mean, dude, and you're like, I know you're huge into storytelling,
I
and
am.
that's important for him to say that sort of radical, but you do like empathy. But his video game is just a mountain floating, and that's all it is. It's not like a typical, and it's
Yeah,
won millions of awards and everything, and it's like it's sort of like
amazing.
you're meditating.
Yeah,
So
amazing.
but when you said active listening, it made me think, did you know Pauline Oliveros, or did you ever study deep listening?
No, I'd love to
Oh,
learn more about that.
anyways, check her out sometimes because she's huge in the avant-garde music world, and she played accordion, and she did this whole, I mean, people know her, because all the Village Harmony people, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you run Village Harmony?
My good friend Larry Gordon ran Village Harmony. He
Yeah.
started it.
Yeah.
He invited Mary Alice and me to join his chorus in 1977, and that's just changed our lives. So Larry Gordon is the person. He died a couple of years ago. He was only
Oh.
75. And he died in a bicycle accident.
Ooh.
Yeah, way premature, way
Oh
premature.
my
But Village
god.
Harmony, but the organization is just thriving
Yeah,
post Larry.
yeah.
How do you know? Where'd you learn about
Well,
Village?
because there's all the Swans Island people,
Oh yeah, right.
I did Fred Parks and,
Oh God, yes, right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Fred was on my podcast twice before he died, and
Wonderful.
Jennifer Armstrong, and then, our big connection is, Zanny and Sam were boyfriend and girlfriend when they were
That's
young
right.
teenagers.
That's right. That's right. No, Zanny is a very good friend. Yeah, of course
Yeah.
she is. Yeah.
So then, these are two
I got to
questions.
tell you a story about Fred Park. Everybody's got Fred Park
Oh,
stories.
please tell me. We could go on
Yeah,
forever on
I
that.
know, I know. He's
Go
extraordinary.
ahead. Go ahead.
So I was at a few music festival about 25 years ago, and Fred, it was the Clearwater Festival that Pete Seeger runs, and Fred was doing a storytelling workshop, and I was really interested in that and him because I know he's kind of a genius, and no, he's a genius. Let's just say that. And so I went, and he said to everybody, he said, "So, says, you want to? I could tell you a couple of jokes, or I could tell one. It's a 45-minute session. I could tell you a
Yeah.
couple of jokes," he said, "or one story." So he said, "We want a story." So he told this one 45-minute story. And about half, it was a folk tale, and he was telling it really, really well. And there was this
Yeah.
mother with this little, I don't know, 2-year-old or something like that, who was 2-year-old, maybe 18 months. I don't know. Who started crying. This baby started crying, and Fred just stopped telling the story. He says, "Hey, bring that baby up here." And she brought the baby up and sat it down beside him. And the baby stopped crying, and he finished the story. It was just like one of the many Fred Park miracle moments. It was really,
Miracle moment. That
yeah,
is so good.
he's amazing. I love him, and
My
Susanna's amazing.
Yeah, I do so many of his jokes, but this is the one I do the most. Do you know the difference between a hobo and a bum?
No.
A bum says, "You got a spare cigarette?" A hobo goes, "Smoking alone?"
That's great. That's
He
fantastic.
he is amazing. And then the
So do you
beer
know
s
him? Did you know if you know Fred personally? Did you ever meet him
Oh,
outside of?
yeah. No, no, I met him at Swan's Island, Sweatshirt.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right, right.
That's where we know Bob Lucas,
Oh,
Dylan
yeah.
Buston,
Oh my gosh, right.
Doug Day, all those people.
Oh,
But
fantastic.
but anyways, here's 2 questions from Alan Turing, 1950s. 1, is thinking a function of the soul?
Well, the soul, gosh, that's the first time you mentioned soul. What the hell is that, Is thinking is thinking a function of the soul. It depends on what you think what the soul is. I don't really think about that word soul that often, even though I'm a churchgoer and everything. Um, but but let's just say thinking, emotion, soul. Again, it's kinda like, where do you draw the line here,
Yeah.
The soul, I suppose you could say the soul. Oh, what's that poem? There's this poem by it goes, oh, no, it's not soul, it's spirit. It goes, "You die when your" this poem goes like this, it's, "You die when your spirit dies, otherwise you live. You might not do a good job of it, but you go on, something you have no choice about." And that's the beginning of this, God, what's it? It's called, I think I got it written. See the name of it here. It was when oh, here it is. Averno. It's by Louise Gluck, who just died. She was a poet laureate.
Yeah.
Gluck.
Yeah.
Averno. That's the poem. That's the beginning of that poem. One of the things that I do in my life.
How do you spell the name of the poem?
Averno. Averno. And Averno is it's a volcanic lake in like about 10 miles, 15 miles east of Naples, Italy, that the ancient Romans thought was the entrance to the land of the dead. And so that's where she named it Averno. And Louise Gluck, you might know, was a poet laureate who died a couple of years ago or
Oh,
last
yeah.
year.
No, I love poetry. We big poetry fan. And we could go in a million tangents there, but let's do this
But I'm
second.
going to also just tell you that
Oh, go ahead.
you're kind of is that one thing I started doing when I was 62, I started memorizing poems.
Oh,
I
nice.
started memorizing sonnets first because I saw an article in Newsweek that said if you memorize sonnets, it's good to keep your brain from getting old. And I thought that was something I'm interested in. And so I started. So now for 13 years, I've been I memorized a bunch of sonnets, and then I started kind of branching out into Robert Frost and Billy Collins and Louis Gluck and all kinds of people. So it's one of the things I spend a lot of my time doing is so I memorize a poem, and then I go through all the poems I've memorized to make sure I still know them. And when I've done that, I memorize another poem. And so that's kind of that's one of my that's a great pleasure of my current life as an old guy.
Dude, that's amazing because you call it a pleasure, but it's also keeping you alive. But here's my favorite Robert Frost. They come up to Robert Frost and go, "Could you explain that poem?" And he goes, "You mean you want me to say it worse?" Isn't that
Wow,
an amazing
great.
line? It's so simple and it's
It's
like
really
so
good.
true.
Could you explain it? That's really good. That's fantastic.
'Cause I mean, that's the beauty of poetry is it makes you sort of itch your head and go, "What?" And that's the beauty, but it's, it's some
It's
of it
true. It's true. When
and
I go over these poems, especially the sonnets, which I don't a lot of them I don't even understand, when I first memorize them, I don't know what the hell I'm saying, but then as I go over them year after year, just little parts of them open up. It's
exactly.
wonderful.
Okay, the second Turing question, Peter, is can machines think?
No, machines cannot think. No, they can't. That's easy. No, they
That's
can
good.
no, they cannot think. They're pretty amazing, but they cannot think. I mean, thinking partly because thinking is, we're as I mentioned, we're kind of thinking is kind of tied up with your soul and with your emotion and,
Yeah.
you know, it's just thinking is a human activity, but kind of
Okay.
yeah,
Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
meaning,
Yeah, that's ri
the meaning.
Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, he says meaning tends to last and happiness doesn't necessarily last.
Well, pursuing meaning is what gives me happiness.
Yeah,
It makes it deeper. It's a deeper happiness. So it's not unlike I'm not pursuing happiness. I'm just pursuing it in a deeper way.
yeah. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
I don't know. Creating consciousness or detecting consciousness. Oh boy. Consciousness is what we're sort of aware of from time to time. Creating or detecting. Does the brain create consciousness or does the brain detect consciousness? The brain, maybe you could say the brain creates consciousness, and when I'm thinking about consciousness, I'm thinking about seeing and hearing and
Yeah,
touching. There's more to it than that for sure, but
yeah.
it's for those of us who are blessed with sight and hearing, it gets pretty tied up with who you are and your consciousness. So I don't know, I don't know exactly. Detect or create. Detect and create.
Yeah, that's fine.
Detect
It's
and create, I
a
don't know.
lot of my binaries are there. Of course, they're both, and it depends, but it's just a prompt for us to think and
Yeah.
like have a conversation. Because the next one is what's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Well, I think the speed of light is faster than anything.
Yeah.
I think the speed of light is faster. I'm going to put my scientific brain on for that one.
Well,
Uh,
here's going to poetry, back to poetry.
yeah.
Audre Lorde said, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools." Her colleague Yvonne Rainer responded, "You can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?"
Is that a question?
Yeah, that's my question to you. And let me just put it into
I
context.
I I I didn't quite yeah, that one
Yeah,
went right over my head.
my question is basically, what tool do you most gravitate towards? But you can apply the word new if you want, and then you can apply it to Audre Lorde's quote, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools."
What tool do I use the most for what? I
Yeah,
mean,
you again, you put all the questions into the context you want. What's the
okay.
tool what's the tool you most gravitate towards?
Uh, okay, the tool I most gravitate towards, that would be how I can okay, let's just say what is the tool I most I that I find what's a tool that I find useful for my life of trying to find more meaning. Um, uh, it actually our church is actually really an important place for that. I'm a Christian, but I'm a Christian who I was brought up in a lovely small congregational church in a tiny town in Massachusetts, Monterey, 500 people, and I went there by myself because my parents went to another church, and I wanted to go to the town I lived in. And what tool? So that's just so my relationship with the church is that I love the stories, I love the storytelling, I love the people, I love this music deeply because that's
Yeah.
a lot of my mostly I've been arranging sacred songs because I'm a church choir director, so it's just kind of
Yeah.
functional. But also, I'm a some and I think that Jesus was a person, but I kind of don't go a whole lot beyond Jesus being a person, a gifted person, a person who was definitely a healer and a but it's not really even so much about Jesus, but more about just the whole culture of the church.
Yeah.
So, but that is really that gives me the church gives is a place because especially when you're traveling a lot, that was where you kind of a home, and it kind of gives me a centering. So what else? What tool centers me? I guess music.
Yeah.
Music.
Yeah.
I think it is. Music is my main tool.
Yeah.
And I have to say that one time it was when I was in my 30s, and I just had Sam and Stephen were young kids, and I was tired all the time and getting sick all the time. And oh, this is actually probably more specifically accurate. And I went to a therapist to find. Once I found out if my body was okay, I went to a therapist. Say, what the hell is going on here? And we found out that whenever I did something that was creative, whenever I went up to the Bread and Puppet and did stuff with them, and I went with Larry Gordon, and we'd rehearse and record a 16th century mass. I wasn't sick. But then when I went back to my kind of daily work life, I was sick. And so the short, simple answer was that when I wasn't doing something creative, I got
Yeah.
sick physically.
Amazing.
And so the answer, my cure and my tool was to be sure that I spent a lot of my time doing things that are creative as a way
Yeah.
to maintain my basic health. It wasn't like,
Wow.
yeah. So that's
That's
really
really well put. What new toy do you suggest?
pogo stick.
Oh my god, I love that. Because, it's me and you versus the wording on the questions, Peter.
Yeah.
So, asking the tool question all these years, 40
Yeah.
years, someone said, "Well, what about a toy?" So then I just flipped it and added
That's
toy.
really good.
And
Yeah.
I love pogo sticks because I used pogo sticks when I grew up. I can picture myself.
You see, so my younger son Stefan is this. I want to talk to him. Talk about him at some point. He's an amazingly wonderful uh, uh, kid. 40-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So he found his wife Zara is just she's
I watched her singing
oh
today.
my God, she's amazing. Yeah,
Amazing.
amazing. And so her grandfather, her father's father, was Von Bodie. Do you know this?
No, tell me.
Okay, well, Von Bodie was a cartoonist, like R. Crumb. He was a
Yeah.
friend of R. Crumb's, and he was kind of like that. He was just that kind of underground cartoonist, very, very famous. It was people. There were people who really loved him, and he's still pretty famous. And Zara Bodie's father uh, picked up his characters and still does them. So, but that's to say, Vizara's got this. I always sometimes say, she's an amazing musician, but also I just say her body is like one big optic nerve. She's just visually, she's brilliant, and
Yeah.
she like collects things and she finds
Yeah.
things. She found this little pogo stick for Desmond, and it reminded me that Desmond's my now 9-year-old son, but this was when he was 6.
Yeah.
And I remember that I used to do pogo sticks. So I looked up on it, I looked up on the computer and I found, oh, look, they make adult-sized pogo sticks. So I got one for myself, and I do it every day. So you,
Oh my
Jerry,
God.
Should, if your back's okay and everything, you should get yourself an adult-sized pogo stick. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's so fun.
That is
It's so
cool. And
fun. So yeah, pogo.
it's probably great exercise for your
I
knees
think
as
it
well.
is. I
Yeah.
think so. I either that or it's killing me. I don't know, but I like it anyway.
Well, at least you'll be dying happy.
Yeah, really.
Okay, beautiful. So, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I worry about my health a lot. When I go to bed at night, yeah, I worry about my health. I have cancer, and I got, just the short story is that 2 years ago they found I had a prostate cancer that had metastasized through my body, and so I had a few months of chemo, and that was, all the usual shit that chemo is. It wasn't horrible, horrible. It was just awful, and and I don't have much stamina now, and and sometime it's going to come back, and I don't have, I'm not, I'm not like a thriving 75-year-old. I'm a little fragile. I'm a little on the fragile side, and so I do worry about my health, just in terms of,
Yeah.
I want to be able to do stuff that I like to do, and I want to be able to, and I'd like to live for a few more years, and I'd like to live the few more years in relative health, and so that,
Good.
yeah. So I think that's a short
Well,
answer. My health.
keeping the prostate cancer dilemma in regards to jokes, I'll tell you a couple. One is the guy goes to the doctor and he says, "Doctor, I'm having trouble peeing." He says, "How old are you?" And he says, "80." He said, "You peed enough." And at our age, when we're peeing, we have to pee.
Yeah, yeah, really, really, yeah. No, yeah. When I have to pee, I have to pee soon. Yeah,
But I mean, you got to pee also while you're peeing. I like, oh, I got so
yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah,
this is McLuhan learned from a poet, Ezra Pound, that artists are the antenna of the race. This means musicians,
yeah,
singers,
yeah, yeah.
dancers, architects. They're the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So, Peter, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
What the inner? So, can you give me an example of what an inner?
Yeah, a hidden psychic effect of like, well, we talk about Zoom. We Zoom is working really good for us. You didn't have to drive. I didn't have to fly out there. I had to do interviews for 35 years and wait until I was in your town or you were in my town. So a hidden psychic effect is of Zoom is that we don't know what it does to us physically. We're seeing each other and it feels like we're communicating strongly, but we're not really, smelling each other or in presence of each other. So it has hidden psychic effects. I mean, even better is like TV. When TV came in, a hidden psychic effect was that it gathered the family in the living room to act like a fireplace. We're just staring at flickering lights or like,
So, is that a good thing or a bad thing? You're talking about
well,
the.
that's the main thing McLuhan, uh, probed his whole career is that every invention isn't good or bad.
Oh,
It has services and
right,
disservices.
right, right,
So
right,
me and you can go, "TV sucks." I mean, TV ruined the world. I think cars, TV, and guns ruin the world. But I'm just saying that as a bias. They
right.
t TV I can watch TV shows of McLuhan teaching me that the TV has services and disservices. But he was a literature guy. But
Yeah,
he got his picture on the cover of Newsweek calling him the new electronic guru. He's like, "Nah," he went along with it, but so it's hard to figure out how did cell phones change us? Well, how did transistor radios change us? When we were kids, It's same thing as a cell phone. We carried around a record player. We could listen to music under the pillow and our parents didn't know it.
Yeah.
And now
Well,
you can't even pry a cell phone out of a kid's hand.
yeah.
That's their so cell phones have services and disservices. But us older people like, oh my God, they're ruining them. Nope, they changed them. So what he's saying is there's these hidden, when we invent something, we want it to do what it's intended to do. The car, here's another one for a car. The car can get me from my house to your house faster with a heater and air conditioning, but that's a service. The other one is it enabled kids to have sex so their parents didn't bug them. So is that a service or a disservice? Who
Yeah.
knows? I
Yeah.
mean, so there's always these, they call them unintended consequences.
That's a good word. Yeah.
That's a sort of what a hidden psychic effect is.
Yeah.
Sorry to go on, but you're singing with a group, brings the spirit of the church and community together, but it also does other things that we're not quite aware of. You could articulate them
I mean,
better
I
than
could
any.
say, yeah, if you want to talk about, I hadn't really thought about this so much about singing, but maybe you could say that because singing requires a certain kind of skill, that it might be something that ostracizes people who feel like they're not good singers. That could be one thing that's,
Of course, and it's just
yeah,
like Sam's a rock star, but did he have to, like Frank Zappa said, in order to be in the music business, you have to sell your cock and your balls. Now you didn't really, you got to do music that you love your whole career.
I was
And
very lucky. Yeah, I was
you're
very
lucky,
lucky.
and
Yeah,
Sam is lucky. He doesn't like have a record company saying, "Dude, you have to write a hit," you
right.
know, and
No.
he's lucky. But there are services and disservices, because one of them, I says in Sam's podcast with me, he basically said at one point, "I'd rather be shooting hoops with my kid."
Well, yeah, yeah.
You
Well,
you know, and
he's
so he has to make a living to pay for his way,
that's
and
hard. That's
he's
hard.
gotta
That's
go
not
online,
easy.
he's gotta do little books and hustle himself. He's gotta hustle.
Sam and Beth and Stefan and Zara are all basically full-time musicians, and I just, and somebody tells me, says, oh, my son Willie, he's the principal of this school, and or somebody says, my son, he's the head
Yeah.
of the and they have these great salaries coming in, and I just think, oh man, if my kids, just why did they
Right,
go,
right, right. Well,
you
thank
know?
God you've got kids who learned how to work with the system, but it is
But I mean,
very
but I mean, it's unstable financially. That's what my point.
Of course, in that, and then so when Sam writes a song or anybody writes a song, there's hidden. They don't just say, "Go rob a," Or I was going to say Charles Ives is a good example. He knew, I'm going to sell insurance so
That's
that
right.
my music career can do anything it wants. And then people go,
That's
"You're
right.
nuts,"
Yeah.
and you'll love this. Bella Fleck told me that the exact same story that inspired Charles Ives. He said, I was in my bedroom listening to Doc Watson, and my brother was in his bedroom listening to Chick Corea jazz rock fusion. And I stood in the hallway and I went, how can I blend these two? That's what Charles Ives did.
Yeah.
He's in the church listening to church music, and then the marching band goes down the street and
Right.
leaks the sound into the church, and he goes, how can I blend these two?
Really? Yeah.
That's called a scavenger composer. That's what Frank Zappa, Charles Ives, and Carl Stalling are the three great
Wow.
scavengers. But anyway, sorry to go on. But again, that's what I like, these tangents.
Well, I always wonder about Charles. I'm a big Charles Ives fan, and I always wondered what, you know, uh, I really wonder what would have happened if he hadn't done the insurance thing. He would have had more time for his composing. Maybe he would have become well known. Maybe he would have developed what he does in a, it's not, I'm just saying, it's easy to say that that was a really smart thing for Charles Ives to do, but I'm not completely convinced that he wouldn't have been as interesting or more interesting if he had.
But is interesting, Peter, meaning more accessible and gotten a bigger audience, or
No, I don't mean more
no?
accessible and bigger.
You're
I
not
actually,
saying he would
I mean,
sell out.
actually, the
Yeah,
integrity of his
yeah,
music and the interest
yeah,
of the music, and I just, I'm a composer of short. I'm an arranger of short forms. I'm really good for, like,
yeah,
I'm the master of like 60 seconds.
yeah.
I can do a hell of I can do this really beautiful thing in 60 seconds. And I think I can do someone like Charles Ives or the great composers. What makes them stand out is that they have a bigger
Yeah.
shape, a longer
But
shape.
dude, then you're perfect for the TikTok generation, man. You make a
Yeah.
song, 30 seconds,
Right.
boom, you got a million hits. But
Really.
Allen Ginsberg, someone just told me Allen Ginsberg said a great thing. He says, yeah, every fourth Bob Dylan song is good, but it's like, dude, the guy cranked out so many
That's good. That's a good
so
record.
many years. It's
Yeah.
still a good record, but we want these people, that we put on the pedestal, like, oh,
Right.
that's great. And then that's fine.
Yeah.
Joni
Right.
Mitchell hated her first recordings and they finally convinced her, well, let's put them out. And she's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Oh my
And
God.
again, was it because she needed the money or
Yeah.
because what? But
Yeah.
anyways, so you get it. There's something hidden, unintended
Yeah.
consequence of something we invent, whether it's a car, philosophy. It doesn't have to be
I
tangible.
think it has to
And
do with
then
addiction.
artists, huh?
I think it has to do with addiction. I mean, I think cars, they're
Yeah,
addictive. I am really, I am very attached to my cell phone. I
yeah,
use my computer more than I should. I get
yeah,
sucked into YouTube, little
yeah.
YouTube parties or this or that, and see it, watching Saturday Night Live things or whatever. It just, it's really easy to, I know, I'm as addicted as the next guy as far as
Yeah,
that goes. And just
that is.
probably because my work is on, so much of my work, my meaningful, very meaningful work, and it wouldn't be able to be as broad without the computer. I wouldn't be able to have as big an effect around the
But
world
but
with the
but
computer.
Peter, do you think you that's your balance? You can go veg out and watch some Saturday Night Live, and then it gives you more of concentration to write your 30-second hit.
Oh, that's very nice of you to say so, but I don't agree. I think it's just basically just like everybody else, just a poor choice of use of time.
Oh, no,
Not always,
yeah,
because a part of it is, part of it is just being humor is very, humor
yeah,
is very important to me. Who is that? Mitch Hedberg, right? Mitch,
yes,
yeah, yeah. So I really where our family is our big Mitch is that how you say it? Helberg?
yeah,
We're big Mitch Hedberg fans. So like he says, uh, 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 I used to do drugs. I still do drugs, but I used to do drugs too. That's one of his things. Or
yeah.
I haven't slept. I haven't slept for 10 days because that would be too long. His kind of his. I love his stuff.
That's good. So now back to the question is,
Okay.
we look to the artist, whether
Yeah.
it's a poet, a songwriter,
Mhm.
or whatever, I mean, everybody's an artist, the garbage collector.
Yeah.
And they are kind of revealing the the unintended consequences or the hidden psychic effects of our inventions.
Right.
And we could cope with those unintended consequences better if we paid attention. But McLuhan's he's just asking the question, well, why do we ignore them? So it's basically the question is, why do we ignore the hidden message of artists?
It could be like, not why do we ignore them, but how much do we ignore them? And I think
Yeah,
that, I feel like I'm pretty good at I got a pretty good balance of
yeah,
of making poor choices and making
yeah,
when I say poor choices, I mean it's just one that's really just not
yeah,
adding anything to my life. It's just wasting time. And
yeah,
um and I do think it has to do with addiction, just do with the kind of addiction. I think it's when I watch, I do take a point with you. You said I think that the cell phone thing with kids now um, is awful, largely.
yeah,
Largely just plain awful
Yeah.
because it's not only isolating kids, but it's also, you know, the they communicate by, you know, they do a lot of their communication by text,
Yeah.
a terrible way to communicate. I mean, it's not a, I shouldn't say it's a terrible way to communicate. It's just a tiny, 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 and compared to actually talking with somebody, even if it's on the
Yeah.
phone or you and me here,
Yeah.
it's just, you
No,
know,
I agree with you, but that's like, well, you invented the telegraph. That's the original texting. In
yeah,
fact, the word social media is defined as starting with the telegraph. It's
yeah,
social media means
right,
electric. It says, well, talking is social media.
yeah, yeah,
Because see, McLuhan says we invented spoken word, we invented printed word. So, you know, now we invent AI and everybody's like, oh my God,
yeah, yeah,
AI
yeah,
is going to write songs. It's like,
yeah,
Susie, my wife hit her cell phone button by mistake, and AI helped her write a song. And she's written the most amazing songs ever.
yeah,
And it's like, come on. She didn't go, oh, I can't do this. But
yeah.
she didn't go, I'm going to keep writing them. She wrote one song with AI and called AI a name, and
Oh
it
my
co-wrote it. So it's
God,
like it's just another tool. But I think your word addiction's really good. Why do we ignore it? Because humans have this ability to be addicted and overuse the tool maybe, or become too
overuse is a good word. Yeah, yeah.
overuse the tool. But here's a funny McLuhan line that goes along with that. Word is the most addicting and universal drug.
Word.
So we're addicted. So, you know, by humming parts of songs, can you make as a big an impact as having a word there?
No, no,
Wow.
no, no, no. It doesn't have the same impact.
You gotta have the word you're saying. Okay.
You don't know, I'm not saying you gotta, but I just mean it's
Yeah.
if you take a
It
song, you know,
does. Okay. No, you're right. Okay.
we do often, you know, we do often just kind of when we're working on a choral piece, we'll ooh it, you know, we'll ooh it and hum it, and
Yeah.
it has its own and it has its own beauty that it doesn't
Yeah.
have with the words, but um, yeah, but the words,
But it is deeper.
is that an addictive thing? Is that an, I mean, I can see what you're
Well,
saying.
no, he's just saying he's trying to say we invented words.
Right,
People don't think we invented words. They just go, well, we got words. We invent them? Yeah,
yeah,
out of the blue, dude. You know
we
what?
did invent them, yeah,
You look at, I'm big on etymology online. Every word that comes up in the day I go, oh, I got to see where this word came from. My favorite thing says of unknown origin.
right.
Every word is of unknown
That's
origin.
yeah,
But
right,
but some human who went to linguist college goes, "Oh, I can trace this back to this." And
right.
my other favorite thing is from London's back alley slang. Like, all the coolest words come from the hoodlums in London.
Wow.
So it's
That
like, I mean, not every, but it's so funny where
yeah,
words come from. But we don't think so. When he said word is the most addicting and universal drug, he's kind of just saying, pay attention that we invented this.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we want to believe words work. T.S. Eliot said, when I talk to you, I've got to use words. No, you don't. You can use gesture, you can use dance, but we've become so reliant on
That's
words
true. That's true.
that we think
Yeah.
it is the best way. But me and you don't have to. I mean, especially because your career started in dance. And here's a big one that I learned. If you watch the Twyla Tharp documentary or read her book, she's like the premier dancer in America. Everybody, David Byrne, whoever, these big hotshot writers go to her and say, okay, do dance to my words. She spent, I don't know if it's like 3 years or 5 years early in her career with no music.
Oh, no kidding.
Because
Amazing.
she
Yeah.
probably knew that the rest of her career is going to be dependent on music.
Yeah, right,
And she
right.
said, you got to be without something to understand it. It's fasting. And said that amazed me. Like, how did you know to do that? Because then, does she do any silent dance now? Probably not, because she's so dependent on who's the big shot who wrote the music for this piece, and
Well,
it's amazing.
well, Sam, I remember Sam he got addicted to buying CD. I mean, it was a really good thing. It
Yeah,
was mixed, but it definitely was an addiction. He went over the top. He just bought just CD whenever he just couldn't keep himself from CD stores. He bought lots of CDs, and he listened to them all the time.
right.
He listened to them very deeply. It's part of
Yeah,
why he's who he is. But
yeah.
then at one point, he decided he realized that he was doing this so much that he just stopped. This is a very Sam Amidon thing. That's not something that I do, but he just stopped listening to music for a year.
Brilliant.
And he
Brilliant.
just, and he just, oh wow, this is like, just it was really so that was
It's something, but something in the way you guys raise your, I mean, that's the big question I wanted to ask. But I'm on that's like, because Live Evil by Miles Davis, that's why we bonded. And then, if I wrote him a card like, here's all the people you should listen to, and he still has the card, this Jags, Miles Davis. And I always would give younger people a list, and then I go, whatever you do, don't listen to any of this. Just
yeah.
go make your own music. But again, there's so much, and we want to source it. But somehow he learned that notion of fasting, because he probably doesn't do that anymore. He went back to
Oh
listening
yeah,
to
yeah,
music.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He did
Definitely.
that for a while
He did it
because
for a while.
he wanted to hear his own. But that was the question I want to ask you at some point, and now is a good time. The way your two sons turned out, do you think, and it's really good, you're proud and they're beautiful creators, is it a little more DNA from you and
Mary
Mary
Alice.
Alice, or is it a little more the way you raised them? Is it a little more nature or a little more nurture? I know it's could be just 50-50, but do you have a hunch? Is it a little more one way or
Well,
the other?
I tell you how I think it plays out. I think that the DNA, uh, there's a very strong DNA thing with music and math. Um, they're very strong. Um, so they both got a good dose of that from both sides of their family. Uh,
You're saying that's the nature.
that's the nature,
But
right?
but also, you're playing, I mean, you got that cute little clip they showed on PBS of him playing the violin, the yeah, I mean, that's the
But I'm gonna no, but then so that's just by itself wouldn't have that wouldn't have. But um, but the way they do music now, both of them, it's just is because and Sam probably told you, but they basically when they were growing up, there was just always singing in the house. My brass band
right,
practiced in the house. Sam would
right,
walk in and go to sleep to the brass band music when he was a little toddler, then they sang with us. We take them to we went took them to see. You know who Easy Barnwell is? Easy Barnwell. She's the one who founded Sweet Honey, one of the great singers of Sweet Honey and the Rock, and one of arguably most important kind of community chorus singing leaders in the country. Anyway, we took them to an Easy Barnwell workshop one time when they were like maybe 8 and 11, and
yeah,
after the workshop we just practiced their songs all the way home. They always were able to sing in harmony.
yeah,
That is totally partly DNA, partly because they sang from the time they were born.
yeah.
Singing, making up harmonies is not something that everybody can do very quickly, but if you're grown up with it. But I think maybe the most important thing was just that it was about our music making was always about making music with people, with other
Yeah.
people.
So you're
And so,
saying that's the nurture
yeah,
side.
that's the nurture side. So I'm not going to
Okay,
say
but
one more. I'm
the
not going to
thing
say one more than the other, but I will say,
you're not even gonna say 1%. You're gonna say it's 50-50 down the line,
well, I'm
nature.
just going to say that the kind of the quality of music, the quality of their musicianship is strongly influenced by their DNA,
Right.
and by the nurture. But the way they do music is mostly nurture, not just us, but our community and our friends. And the Village Harmony thing you talked about, that was
Okay,
profound.
I see.
Suzanne,
Yeah.
Susanna, Fred Park, Jennifer Armstrong, all those people
Yeah,
did.
that's it. You're saying that the nature is about the quality, the nurture is about the way. It's
Yeah,
sort of like form and content, but it is interesting. But you won't veer
I'm not going
1%.
to go one way or the other, but I would just say that for the quality of life that they have,
Yeah,
the quality of life as it's informed by them, as it's informed by
yeah,
the music, is mostly the nurture of us.
yeah,
And we went every year we brought them to the Pine Woods family camp of traditional song and dance, where some of the greatest dance callers and traditional singers were there. And so
yeah,
that, and all these other families who loved folk music, and they did every year that they lived. We spent a week at this camp. So this nurturing is, we'll take as much credit as we can, but a lot of it is really the community
yeah.
we were part of. That's
But
very,
it was funny
and
because
Larry Gordon's Village Harmony, very important,
yeah,
very important.
and it's funny because I was going to bring up Sweet Honey eventually because Bernice just died, and
Right.
this quote she says, it will possibly get to that, but I wanted to continue the through line. So from the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, broadcasting them. The next question is, do artists have moral obligation?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
They do. It's complicated because there are some really, really great artists who do bad things.
yeah,
you know, who do bad things to other people, and that's always just so sad when you have a and I don't know what else to say about that, except that I think that it's actually it's a big moral, in a way. It's a large moral. Part of it is just trying to is being honest with what you do, with the art that you're making. You mentioned already about how, uh, what's his name? The composer you mentioned, who's worked in the insurance company.
Charles Ives.
Charles Ives, right? You mentioned how he felt like he was keeping himself honest by doing the insurance job, and I respect him for that. He felt, that's how I'm going to keep my music honest, and
Yeah,
that's, and then, but of course other musicians are at the mercy of trying to feed their families. And so where do they, how do they respond to that? And I think that, I think it's important to make moral decisions, very important as an
yeah,
artist, very important, because people look up to you, and you just have an outsized impact on people around you.
yeah. I think your word complicated is true because it's really hard to separate the art from the artist, you know. And some artists are great, and you might not go along with what they do or what they believe. So do you go, okay, I can't listen to your art anymore,
No,
or
yeah, no, it's not that. Yeah, that's really not simple.
yeah,
I mean, Jerry Garcia, I love his music.
yeah.
I love his music, and but he also, he's also had a pretty rough life with so many. What is it about great
Well,
music?
no, they dosed the British TV crew. It's in the documentary, which is a good sign that the documentary says we're going to tell you that they dosed them without telling them. And my friend, who I asked all these same questions, Peter, great filmmaker, John Else, he worked for the dead, and they dosed him once without telling him, and
Incredible.
he forgives them.
Yeah,
He's like, okay, they were trying to be playful, clowns and do this. It's like, dude, don't do that. That is not a cool thing to do.
yeah,
And if we had them here, they can rationale and go, well, we were kids and we were being playful, blah, blah, blah. But that's, that again is moral obligation. But, more obligation goes into these really bizarre artists that do these really deeply, I mean, just violent films alone. I like hate violent films, but
Yeah.
people like, no, does it alleviate the viewer of being violent or does it cause them to be violent? We don't know. In fact, Auden nailed it, the poet. The mystery of art is that we don't know if it activates or pacifies us.
Mhm. Yeah.
We wanna believe that the music we're creating is good for people.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
might be pacifying them, but we're like, "No way, it's a healing force," you know?
So, what do you mean by pacifying? It sounds like you're using that as a negative kind of.
Well, yeah, it's more of a negative. It's just like, all the political documentaries we have now on PBS or, and there's so many political docs or Jon Stewart. Just go, I mean, to Colbert or
Colbert, Colbert.
Saturday Night Live, the news on Saturday Night Live. Does that more activate or more pacify? People go, ha 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 ha. I mean, they work for Trump, in my opinion. It's like, don't put him on there. And then, Alex Baldwin plays Trump. Like, that's horrible. But
Uh,
we know that making fun of something might help you get activated and go participate in
yeah,
democracy.
yeah,
And
yeah,
some people will go, no, I saw the Weather Underground documentary on PBS and I'm for everything they did. But, now I don't have to go do anything. You know,
yeah, yeah,
they did it. They did it. So
yeah.
that's what I mean by pacify. Yeah. Pacify comes with baggage. Is it good to soothe the soul? I mean, Bertolt Brecht also. I want plays that activate people, not put them in a trance.
Mhm.
So if you're singing one of your rounds and one of the audience members kind of goes into a trance, and that indeed enlightens them, it leads to some epiphany in their sort of trance state. Isn't that a form of activating? Well, no, you're pacifying them maybe, so there's a
Yeah.
fine line. It's like the snake eating its tail.
Well, it's, music, Bertolt Brecht, Charles Ives, uh, Bartok, they're just, I mean, there's really, yeah, I think some people find that music is the most beautiful music to listen to.
Yeah.
And in other people, it's very harsh to their ears. And, I don't think, yeah, to me, it's like, I can understand, I mean, I think music is saying that, is music, it's just so broad. It's such a broad, it's a world, it's a whole world, and it
Yeah.
has everything. It has everything.
Well,
It's
again, it's back to Peter of McLuhan saying everything we invent has services and disservices.
right, right.
But did we invent music? Because, who's the guy, the French composer who just listened, Messiaen, he just listened to the birds. In fact, Sun Ra, the great jazz shaman,
Yeah,
he says, you worked with Fletcher Henderson, did he influence you? And he goes, no, the birds and the crickets influenced me.
yeah, right.
He was influenced by both,
Yeah,
but that's kind of biomimicry. Biomimicry is when we mimic biology, we mimic nature to invent something.
mhm.
But maybe humans were whistling or humming before they heard the animals humming. We cannot prove that. Which
Yeah,
one, you
right,
know,
right.
which one? And so um we're going to get into music, but well, first of all, I want to ask you if we could just do a part two somewhere down the line, because we only got into barely a quarter of the questions, which I loved. But I want to get into music and dance more, but I have a few more philosophical questions.
Okay.
Okay, so are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Afraid? Um, I think it would be, if you just say, I think that, uh, I would say I'm I probably would say I'm more afraid of new ideas in that I know what I know, I know what I like, and it just takes me. I think it's partly being 75
Yeah,
that I can adjust to a new idea, I can adjust to a new way of doing things,
yeah,
um, and new ideas certainly are really important and essential to everything. But yeah, I would say at this point I'm definitely uh, in a kind of comfort in a comfort stage of life.
yeah.
Uh,
Very good. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
when my my earliest memory is when my uh, Philip, who was when I was 3, when I was just about exactly 3, my baby brother was born, and my mother had someone else take care of us while she was in the hospital, and I remember that. And I always thought it was a black woman who took care of us, but my mom told me. I checked in with her and said, no, it wasn't. It was a white woman. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, I didn't even see many black people back then. And then my next memory was a birthday, my 4th birthday, when I was given a red truck and a green truck of the same kind for my birthday, and I got also a Walt Disney record of Cinderella, and it was scary for me to listen to that. So anyway, those are my
Wow,
yeah,
you mean the record scared you?
scared me. It scared me because of the story, and it was so scary. Yeah, yeah. Those
That's
are two
good.
of my earliest memories. It was when I had an older brother, Skippy, and he was 2 years older, and but I just have a pretty strong memory of those 2 trucks, though, for some reason, and that 4th birthday.
And
I
that
don't
was
do much else, though.
3
What?
boys total in your family? How many
4.
kids?
My older brother, Skippy, who was an airplane mechanic and helicopter mechanic, and my brother, 3 years younger than me, Philip, who I mentioned, who was in an Air Force career flying A-10s, and then he had a career flying Southwest as a pilot, and now he flies as a 72-year-old, he flies private jets. And my baby brother, Jay, who's 7 years younger than me, who is a house painter and a extreme sport kind of guy, riding bikes and playing basketball, and he has a kind of garage band that he plays in. Those are my
Cool.
3 brothers.
So, is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Oh God, memory is not. It's not. It's just everything. Memory is everything. Memory is who we are. Memory is who we are.
So you're saying it's both a curse. It can be both a curse and a
Absolutely, yeah.
blessing.
Well, I don't think of it in terms of curse. I just think of it
Yeah,
as I think that's like trying to make it something that it's not. I mean,
yeah, I see.
yeah, it's just that's just it's too much to say it's a curse or a
Yeah,
blessing. It's I mean,
it's everything.
if I was going to choose, I'd say blessing because without it, we'd just
Yeah.
be, we wouldn't be anybody.
Okay, Peter, tell me someone within your immediate family, just briefly, and then outside your immediate family who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model, and what specifically was that impact?
Well, I had an uncle, Uncle David. He was a brilliant jazz musician, and I didn't ever really spend a lot of time with him, but I think just the fact that he was I related to him because of my family. There wasn't people didn't do music that much. My parents were both good musicians, but they didn't do it. They
Yeah,
just didn't do it. They did other stuff, and they could have, but they didn't. But he was a really brilliant jazz musician. And I remember when he died. I think it was just the fact that he was such a he wasn't a terribly successful musician. In terms of becoming famous or anything, but he was really great and really gifted, and I just kind of thought that I kind of got a lot of the stuff that he had sort of informed who I am in a way, just in terms of the sheer talent of making music. Outside, I would say I had a cello teacher named Elizabeth Potiger in college, and So I'm going to tell you a little anecdote about that. Is that I was in Navy ROTC, and I was in at Miami of Ohio, and I was studying computers and math, and then it's a long story, but I won't tell you the long story. But the short version of the story is that I dropped out from Marine training. I was in Marine training the year after my sophomore year, and I just quit, and I flew home, and I went to a Tanglewood concert with the Boston Symphony. They're playing Beethoven's Emperor Concerto, and I just started crying and realizing that I really wanted to be a musician. That's what I wanted to do. I had done some music as a kid, but not a whole lot. I just want to do that. So I found a cello teacher at the Boston Symphony to give me lessons. I got a cello, and I hitched back to Miami with a cello and a guitar and a backpack from Massachusetts to Ohio. And I walked into the music building the first time I'd walked into it, and she was a cello teacher, Miss Pottinger. And I walked into her room, and I just said, my name's Peter Amidon, and I want to be a music major. And she um, was surprised at that moment, but she just embraced me. I mean, spiritually embraced me. And she was my musical mother, my mentor. It wasn't that she was a great musician. It was more that I wonder, one time I said to her, I said, I'm $3,000 in debt or something like that. And she said, a few $1,000, that's nothing to worry about. That kind of,
Oh, that is
I
great.
thought I've always remembered that. It was so good because it's true,
Yeah.
the big picture of life, a few $1,000, that's nothing. And she just was really, so she was, I really felt like, she just supported me spiritually in this really major moment in my life where I was actually
Beautiful.
becoming a musician as an 19-year-old.
Really well put. And so did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Oh yeah, they went to a UCC church in Great Barrington, which is the town they'd lived in before we moved to Monterey. And then in Monterey we had this Pilgrim Fellowship group, which is the UCC youth group, and I became part of that. And in those days, in the early '60s, that was the only thing happening in town for teenagers. So it was fantastic, and that's when I started going. They traced me. We went to church every Sunday, and my father was the deacon. My mother was a church secretary at one point, and it was very important to them. And I definitely got that. I definitely appreciate that from them, just having that church culture.
Do you pray?
I don't pray very much, actually.
Wow. I thought for sure you were going to say yes. Okay.
No.
Well, tell me about that because it's interesting. One person in 40 years, Peter, I got to tell you, I says, do you pray? And they goes, that's too personal. And a lot of people, or the other, you will love this one. Do you pray? And this woman goes, yeah, for parking spaces. But I don't think people nowadays want to say they pray to this, to
Yeah.
like the guy Jesus. They want to say, well, I pray to some energy, or I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. And
Right.
I'm curious why you said, of all people, I thought you were going to say yes, and then you said not really. So suss that
Well,
out.
I know prayer is a really important part of our church,
Yeah,
and it's and and there I am not praying. I mean, I think I think that it's maybe because the music takes care of that. I'm praying when I'm leading the choir.
that's good.
I'm praying when I'm arranging songs, and I do feel like my songs are people tell. I mean, I think my songs are spiritual. They have
Yeah,
people when people
yeah,
sing them, they get a spiritual thing from them. And yeah, so so I just say singing
yeah, no,
when I'm singing with other people, especially, that is the
yeah,
closest thing I come to praying.
yeah. No, I think the main thing I've gotten from you is that it's what it is sharing with other people,
That
whether it
is,
be
yeah,
this or that, whatever you're doing.
yeah,
And that's the phenomenon I got from studying Marshall McLuhan and James Joyce's is it's whatever humans somehow want to put something between each other, whether it's a word, a gesture,
yeah, yeah,
they're and it's not so there has to be another. you don't just go sing to yourself. I mean, you
Yeah.
can
No,
and
no, no. Right, right.
mind,
You can.
but, and so, if God does exist, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
What would I like to say, God, after I die? Well, I think, I mean, just it's a bit of a prideful thing, but I really like the idea that I really like the idea that people are continuing to sing the music that I have put out there.
Right.
That's that's I think that is and also the now that's what I'm thinking of mostly now, but also we've just had a um here's another anecdote. I was when I was completely nuts about contra dancing when I discovered it. And I had danced. I had a really great dance teacher in elementary school. She doing square dancing. It was this tiny little one-room schoolhouse, but we square danced whenever we were inside, which is whenever it was snowing or not. So it was we spent a lot of time square dancing. So when I became a music teacher, I didn't really know anything. I hadn't had any training. I just kind of all of a sudden I was a musician, and they needed a music teacher, and all I knew how to do was dance and sing. So we did a lot of dancing and singing, and then I started doing residencies as a visiting storytelling, dancing, singing person. And I realized when I left them, I'd play my accordion for their dancing. When I left them, I couldn't. Um, they couldn't dance anymore because they didn't have music. So I went to my friends Andy and Mary Kay and Mary Alice. I said, "Why don't we make a cassette tape of dance music so I can leave it behind? And oh, we might as well do a book with it, and we'll call it Chimes of Dunkirk after this great dance of our favorite dances that we use with our kids because they also were music teachers then, and they were also people who had come into it from contra dancing." And so we did. We put out this book, and we called ourselves New England Dancing Masters. And we put out this book called Chimes of Dunkirk, and in about a year, it was selling all over the country. And that kind of led, I kind of, we'd do, Meryl and I do workshops because of the books, and the books would be, and we'd get hired because of the books, but then, the books were, it was just so, so that's another legacy
Yeah.
that I have. But the one I think about more is singing, actually.
Yeah. But it's beautiful because it's a way of being it's reincarnation. It's life after
Yeah,
death. Like, you'll
right.
love this joke. Krasner says, "I only believe in reincarnation in one of my past lives." But you the memories of
Yeah,
your times you will live on, but also physically,
yeah,
these books and media that you've put out will live on.
yeah.
And, it goes along because, I interviewed Louis Kemp. He was a schoolmate of Dylan's when they were 10 and 12 years old. And then eventually he got a gig with Dylan, like, helping him, manage the Rolling Thunder tour. And I interviewed him recently, and then he sort of went on a religious path. And, he said this line that's sort of like that: "You can't take it with you, but you can send it ahead."
Right, right.
And I thought that was really touching. And this is to set up our last question. This is Bernice,
Bernice
Reagan,
Reagan, yeah.
Sweet Honey, amazing what Sweet Honey and the Rock did. This is what she said: "I was here before I came, and when I die, I'm not leaving."
Wow.
And
Yeah,
I mean, when I read that, it makes me cry. It's like, I'm
yeah.
not leaving because
Isn't
she
that weird?
knows she ain't leaving. My physical body might not be here, but you can just hit YouTube and
Yeah,
listen to me sing.
that's really
And
great.
and so this is the third setup for the question. Hollis Frampton, experimental filmmakers, said narrative, which is, one thing you're involved with, storytelling, narrative, was born out of the animal necessity of the spirit because we're waiting to die.
I agree with that completely.
Yeah. So here's the question, Peter. Can you forget to die?
Can you forget to die?
Yeah.
Well, I think can you forget to die? Well, actually, I think that's what we do all the time, otherwise
Yeah.
we're uh, well, I'll just precede that by saying that I don't want to die because I don't want to die.
Yeah.
because I'm having such a good time. I think that's a good reason.
That's
I think that's a good reason to fear death, you know?
that is good. Because see, when I ask that question, can you forget to die? People don't know to take it literally or metaphorically.
Right.
Yeah, I say you take it however you want because they go, "You mean can I forget that I'm going to die?"
Right,
Because
right.
my friend just died at 104. And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know if I even wanna live that long." But then Susie and I saw a woman at the best jazz club in LA at this amazing concert. She's 102. And
Mhm.
she sang Ava Gardner's voice in South Pacific.
Oh
She's
my
she's
god.
sort of lot like not known big, but her
Yeah,
name's
right, right,
Ava.
right.
I says, "How could you even get her on the stage?" But
Yeah,
she walked up there and sang, and it will be burned in my brain forever. I
yeah.
mean, I was just like, I love because I mean, you're having a good time, but again, if you're in pain or you're like, "Oh, man," like, because now I've since COVID, I've realized so much more. I've never thought about dying. Now I'm like, "Dude, I'm ready to die. I've had another," but I love life, and I want to not say that. It might be my way of combating it from dying, but it's like, I don't wanna think about it, but it's sort of like, do you wanna live for another 20, 30, 40 years?
Well, yeah. I we when Mary Alice and I first met when we were in our 20s, we were singing Sacred Harp. Do you know what Sacred Harp music is? One of the things that Sacred Harp, it's the early American shape note music. It
Yeah,
was kind of the foundation of what got Larry Gordon going with Village Harmony. Was the
yeah,
Sacred Harp was a big part of what got that going, and we were Sacred Harp singers. And we hooked up with Larry because of the Sacred Harp. And these are early American uh, 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 four-part songs a cappella that are sung. They were composed by self-taught early American composers from New England. A lot about death. Beautiful poetry about death.
yeah,
A lot of Isaac Watts. And
yeah,
Mary Alice and I were both really attracted, especially to the death songs back in our 20s.
yeah,
Gospel songs. This may be the last time. This may be the last. Oh, death. Oh, death would spare me for another year. We were singing those when we were in our 20s. We've always loved death songs, and I think we still do. And it's not something everybody understands.
yeah,
It's just so it gives me great pleasure to
yeah,
sing these great death songs, and I think it's just a way of kind of like dealing with it.
yeah,
I don't want to die, and we're in a hospice singing group. We're called Hollowell, and we sing for people who are dying.
yeah,
We have a bunch of people in the group, but maybe 6 or 7 are going to somebody's home with the family around.
yeah,
So I've seen a lot of people dying.
yeah,
I've seen, and most of them are situations where it's a good death.
yeah,
Families around, and often they're very accepting of it. So that's something that's quite extraordinary to me to see someone close to death, alert, and accepting what's happening. It's
yeah,
just amazing. And I'm not there yet. Maybe I will be when it comes. I don't know.
but it's so well articulated, Peter, because that is music is a healing force. We know that. And what you're singing about, does it cause death or does it alleviate of your turmoil of dealing with death?
No, it
Well,
doesn't cause death. No,
no.
it's totally. It's a way of
I
just
know, but I'm just saying the theme because, in fact, I'll never forget when Jennifer Armstrong, she knows the history of all folk music like
yeah,
you, and she says, "Why have I been singing songs about men killing women all these years?" And, again,
that's
it
right,
is
right.
this thing. It's like
Yeah,
maybe that's the way you deal with it. That's a part of how
right,
the human deals with it.
right.
And so it's
And
not necessarily.
she's a very strong feminist.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
You know, and
and
so that kind of fits with that, doesn't
yeah,
it?
yeah,
It fits with
but
that.
she knows maybe singing those songs for 20, 30, 40 years helped her realize her path as a feminist.
Yeah,
So she
yeah,
flipped it, you
yeah.
know,
Right, right.
and so, that was really, an amazing time today, Peter, with you, and, even though I'm gonna hit the end broadcast buttons soon, I hope we can plan part 2, and,
Absolutely.
and we both got to promise neither of us will die
Yeah,
in the
well, yeah,
meantime.
yeah. I always tell I have my sound guy, my engineer Al Stockwell. Whenever he's working on a project, he says, "What's your deadline?" I said, "I want you to do it before I die. That's my deadline."
I got to use that line. That's a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
My friend calls it a dread line. I goes,
The
don't say
deadline, right?
it's a dread. Don't dread it.
Yeah,
be happy about it.
exactly.
And it is going to be like in January, February, so it's a ways down the line, but it's really been fun. And again, I just want to compliment you. I mean, whatever you did raising Sam,
Oh,
man,
thank you.
you guys scored. That guy is like, wow.
I
That
agree.
that PBS thing was just so perfect because
Yeah,
it
yeah,
showed him as the kid, and
yeah.
then it showed him, and he didn't abandon his
Right.
roots.
No, he
He
didn't.
reinvented them. That's
Exactly.
the
Right.
beauty. It's hard to do it. You
I
can
agree.
be,
Yeah.
here's the two words we use. You can be retro or you can be rooted. He
Aha.
he's not retro.
No,
He's
right.
rooted.
Right. Yeah, very
Yeah, I
much.
mean, it's not bad to be retro, but I mean, okay, everybody, you can Zappa says it great because you use the word genius usually. Frank Zappa said, "A genius is someone who steals and you can't tell who they stole it from."
That's great. Love that
But
guy.
it is this transformation, reinventing.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Thank you so much,
Well,
Peter.
thank
It's
you. It's
really
been a
been
great
a pleasure.
pleasure, Jerry. You take
Yeah.
care.
Okay. Thank you. See
Bye-bye.
you.